On today's Starting Nine, Snake and Carl sit down with Joe Girardi to talk about his experiences with the 2022 Phillies, behind the scenes, and the next steps in his career. Before and after that, we get into some great DS playoff baseball coverage. It's a huge show. There's a ton of stuff going on. No better time to cut a great Starting Nine, so let's get into it. Action! Welcome back to Starting Nine. Carl here in New York City. Snake in Austin. We just finished. Yeah, dude. Big Apple Carl here, checking in.
Yeah,
I feel different. I feel cool. I'm good, man. We just come off a great stream.
God, just a good game. Great series. A good series really all the way around. We'll get into all the games. But yeah, the game we just finished up, San Diego was able to get it knotted back at 1, heading to San Diego. There's a lot of important things that happened in that game. I think one of the most important is the way the San Diego bullpen performed in Game 1 and Game 2. They were in a position, Game 1, they had the tying run to the plate. They ended up ultimately losing that game. Game 2, they were able to win 5-3. Darvish didn't go super deep into the game, deep enough. They had Suarez come in with just electric stuff. Hader was a little shaky, but got the job done. Came in for a 4-out save, made it work, heading to San Diego. Series is a 1-1. So, and that was a must-win for the Padres. No doubt about it.
Yeah, to get two, I think you can call them below-average starting pitching performances from Clevenger and Darvish. Darvish battled tonight, but if you ask Darvish, he'd say, yeah, I can pitch better, and I expect to perform better. And so to go 1-1 with two lackluster starting pitching performances where you put so much on the bullpen, your point, the bullpen showed up. So I do want to, let's start with this Padres game because we're just coming off watching. We're so deep into it. And we should just acknowledge off the top, obviously, Phillies Braves. 1-1 there. Great game in the Bronx last night. Some uncharacteristic mistakes from the Guardians. And then obviously, what's going on with Astros Mariners. We're going to get to whether or not we think the Astros and the Mariners can bounce back from that. But right now, most pressing thing, 1-1 in both NLDSs. We watched both games tonight, but we spent more time with the Dodgers Padres. There's so much good storylines. We're fresh on that. So let's start there. I saw you taking notes. I saw you putting your scorecard together. As a former player, like just generally how that playoff atmosphere and experience to you, that jumps out. That's a big one. That was a really cool game.
Oh, it was amazing. And I think it was a carryover, even though the Padres lost the first game, and Clevenger had a rough start. He, 2 2/3, 5 runs, 4 earned. But the most rewarding thing about that, from the Padres' perspective, is the way their bullpen performed. And they threw, I don't even know how many innings it was, 5 or 6 something innings, no hitless innings. Their bullpen gave up 0 hits. That's got to feel good moving forward. And in Game 1, Suarez didn't even pitch, and he came in tonight and he's throwing 101 mile an hour, just laser beams, with an unbelievable changeup. Hader did his thing. So I think the storyline was also. It was the way the bullpen performed, and some huge at bats from the offense. And we went over this and we talked about the firepower from the Dodgers. Turner had a home run last night. He had another home run tonight. Dodgers missed some mistakes again tonight, but that's going to happen. You're not always going to land on pitches you have an opportunity to hit, and that's baseball. But Padres should feel very good about this series moving back to San Diego, tied at 1-1.
Yeah, so how about the bullpen from San Diego in particular? Suarez is a name that jumps out. He came in a huge situation tonight, gets a strikeout, and then gets a double play ball. So from the Padres, if you come into this series and it's like, all right, well, one of our bigger weaknesses and the players aren't thinking this, just more from like the general leadership organizational standpoint, Bob Melvin knows what he's working with. You have to have all that confidence that you're getting just great production in the bullpen. But at a higher level, there's guys got to be walking around, everybody in the Padres organization, because with how the way Soto's played and to get Hader to come out and get 4 outs tonight on the road in a must-win game, whether or not Hader pitched as well as he did when you got him, fact of the matter is you're where you need to be right now. It's 1-1 NLDS. This is exactly where the Padres want to be when they were at the trade deadline to make these moves. And Soto looks good. Soto looks like the guy they traded for.
Soto looks pretty good. I think he would like to have performed a little bit better in these last couple games, but he's swinging the bat okay. I mean, it's not, the 5 for 59 or whatever it was, since his acquisition or a pretty big sample size. Like he was hitting around 100, for the Padres, up until, the end of the regular season. Things were looking good, but he's a big-time player. He's going to come through. At least he's going to put a great at-bat together. And even if he's not swinging the bat well, for the opposing pitcher, it's not a very comfortable guy to face because he's got incredible plate discipline, and he can do damage at any moment's notice. Whether he's hitting 100 or 400, you're going to pitch him very carefully, and that's that's one of the things that makes Soto so dangerous is that just because he might be struggling doesn't mean you can take it easy on him. Because it could take one swing here and there to get the guy going. And in a series like this, that's, from a Dodgers perspective, that's exactly what you don't want to have happen.
And pretty interesting, the Padres' bottom of the lineup, I'd say, because that Machado, who just shows up, played awesome tonight. I think it was 2 for 5. Big play in the field there with the runner on third base with Trey Turner in the box late in the game. And then obviously Soto. But then you start to get down towards the bottom, and you see guys like Jerkson Profar and Trent Grisham, and Austin Nola. And those guys kind of showed up a little bit. I feel like if you can get these little dangerous parts of the Padres come together. Obviously Trent Grisham in New York literally killed the Mets. One of those sneaky, dangerous teams, you start to feel it. I mean, you have to have all that confidence. The Dodgers are an 111-win team and to split the first 2 games on the road. And you saw Clayton Kershaw and Julio Urias. They're throwing Mike Clevenger and then coming back to Yu Darvish. So it's just a completely different part of the dance. And now going back to San Diego, and they've got Musgrove and Blake Snell ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, it has to feel like a win if you're the Padres to split the series because – I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that expected this to go back to San Diego, 2-0 Dodgers. And, that's not a wild prediction by any means. And I think for one of the things that you brought up is that you have to have production from, those 5 through 9 guys in your order at some point in time, especially to beat a team like the Dodgers. You can't just solely rely on 1 through 5 to do all the damage and then 6 through 9 are basically outs. And we've seen production, from Profar. We saw Myers with a big home run, Cronenworth with a big home run in Game 2. Nola with some good at-bats. It's just obviously Grisham has had a nice postseason. So without production from those 3, 4, or 5 guys, the Padres are probably down 0-2 going back to San Diego. So good sign for, not only for the Padres, it's just a good sign for baseball. It's great for baseball fans, not particularly Dodgers fans. But it's gonna be more exciting going back to San Diego, not at 1, and it just makes the series better. I mean, and as a baseball fan, that's all I want to see. I want to see the best series possible, and whoever comes out on top, may the best man win.
I thought tonight's Game 2 was a great example of the cruelty of this game. So who was pitching for the Dodgers when Profar hit the 7 hopper through the side? There were so many.
That was Gratterall. Gratterall was
little
up.
Air here.
And Gratterall's a guy who, he's erratic. He was, kind of like Trinan in the sense that, Trinan didn't, to me, look right. He's struggling with command of his sinker, and we talked during the stream about how much his ball moves left to right. east west, north to south. It's hard to command that sometimes when you have that sort of movement. He's not able to kind of dial that in. And he's having a hard time locating his cutter too. He threw a lot of cutters that were elevated, some of them backed up. He got away with some mistakes just because his stuff is so devastating. And the harder you throw, the more movement you have, you're going to get away with more mistakes. But yeah, Gratterall was in there. Profar had that chopper through the hole. And that's sometimes you're going to have to rely on things like that. You don't always have to hit a ball 115 off the bat to the wall, to have success. You put the ball in play, good things are going to happen.
And then, conversely, though, it's like, okay, so Jurickson Profar gets the job done, gets the ball through the gap. I think run around first base, so Freddie Freeman was, pinched over a little bit. And then Max Muncy on the other side, great swings on the ball. Almost every ball I want to say he hit tonight was warning track, off the wall, home run. He looked ready to go. He's a guy, I want to say, under 200 this year, historically a tremendously dynamic offensive player, power to all sides of the field, just a great, to me, one of those great, complete, not a tier one hitter, but just a guy you just throw in the middle of the lineup, just so good and productive. As Dodgers fans, I'm sure one of their big questions coming into the playoffs was man, we really need to get Muncy going so we can kind of get cruising. So he looked probably as good as he's looked all season at the most important time of the year.
Yeah, he took some really nice swings. I mean, he's hitting almost 430 in the postseason. He was 2 for 4 in Game 2. Muncy's he's got one of those swings, and he can handle the high pitch. Balls elevated in the strike zone, or even just above the strike zone. But we talked about it during the stream. He gets a lot of top spin. On some of his swings. And that one, borderline almost left the yard. He ended up having a home run. He almost had 2. But you're right. That's a good sign for the Dodgers. Not that they need any more help, but in these situations, you're hoping that, you're fucking hoping that 1 through 9 gets hot. Because if on the flip side with San Diego, you're going to have, guys that you typically don't see a lot of production out of. In big situations, not that they're capable of it, but if you're going to see that from San Diego, you really want to see as many guys in your lineup get hot as possible. So Muncy did swing the bat well, Freeman with a big home run, but it just wasn't quite enough, to overcome the Padres tonight. And I liked what I saw from the Padres. I thought it was great. There was some miscues on both sides. The Turner play it short. It looked like that ball was just kind of in his glove and kind of went from the fingertips of his glove to the heel of his glove, and he just couldn't get a handle on it, which what should have been, or could have been a double play. And then the hustle play from Grisham, ball in play, I believe it was 2 outs. Turner tried to go to second base for the force. Grisham beat it. He was safe. Could have led to more damage than it did. And then the Cronenworth play, line drive up the middle, almost hit Darvish in the head. It was a tough play, but I would probably, I don't know if they scored it a hit or an error, but this is the big leagues. I would probably call that an error. Fortunately enough for the Padres, it didn't have too much of an effect, and they were able to do enough offensively tonight to get the win.
And then Cronenworth, you'd said it right on the stream. And I'm going to keep calling attention to the stream to the audience because I know you guys go tune these streams. The insight that gets thrown around in real time, pitch by pitch, especially if you guys been listening to me talk baseball for years, I'd like to hang my hat on great baseball conversation. Some of the best stuff I've ever been a part of at Barstool's in these streams we're doing in the playoffs. So if you were watching this stuff with us, you're familiar with a lot of the stuff we're talking about. So check these out as they come up. I'll say one thing that we talked about on the stream was Cronenworth. And it was early in the game. This is like the next bat after Machado and Soto that you'd circle in the lineup and be like, all right, you can actually pop a little bit, get going. It's a former All-Star, an offensive-minded middle infielder. And so, 0 for 3 had kind of looked a little funky to start, 2 for 20, I think, in the postseason. And literally on command, you're like, man, he's due for one. Trying to leave a two-seamer over the inner half, inner third. He yanked. Oh, beautiful, beautiful pull side home run and big smile. So like maybe that's you have a couple guys walking around the Padres, not named Juan Soto and Manny Machado, that are feeling really, really good about themselves coming into the next 2 games at home. And that's anything you could ask for, Bob Melvin. Yeah, we want to split, but not only do we want to split, if you're going to win one of the 2 games, give me the second one, like you said on the stream. Those guys are on the bus ride. They're getting ready for the bus ride. They'll be on the mic, hanging out, having a couple pops, feeling as good as they can going back to San Diego. And at this time of the year, yeah, it's momentum.
And you know what? They have an opportunity. I don't want to say it's a long shot because it's absolutely possible, but they have an opportunity to finish the series in San Diego. And you know they're thinking about that. They're talking about that. They've got Musgrove. You know, they have a tremendous opportunity and a chance to go up 2-1 with him on the mound, red hot on the ears. And like you just said, the next bat after Soto, Machado, like you need Cronenworth to get going because he's a really nice player. You know, and I think he's going to have quite a few all-stars under his belt, you know, as he progresses throughout his career. You know, and I got to see him, you know, for a short time period when I was in San Diego. I love him as a player. You know, I think he does everything the right way. He's got all the tools. He's got a great head on his shoulders, and maybe that's what he needed. You know, tonight, huge swing of the bat. You know, Grisham swinging the bat well. Profar is a great player also. Let's not forget, Jurickson Profar was I believe he was the number 1 prospect in baseball at the time when he was with the Rangers. Yeah, even if it was for a year, whatever it is.
No,
like,
yeah, for a while he was like the big guy.
The ability's there, and he's also a leader. I saw some leadership qualities out of Profar that I really, really like. You know, and you know, Myers has the ability to take you deep. He's got some speed. I mean, let's not forget about Kim. Like, he can swing the bat too, and he plays a nice shortstop. So the names in the lineup might not be as sexy as the Dodgers, but they can play. They can really play. And I think this postseason is going to bring out the best in this lineup. We know what their pitching staff can do. It wasn't the best from Darvish, but it also wasn't the best from Kershaw. So they did enough to get the job done. Rumor
Mill is swirling. A lot of Dodgers fans are going to be making their way down to San Diego to cheer their team on. And rumor mill continues to swirl. They're going to be using the Game Time app. MLB playoffs underway. You guys want to be getting tickets, whether you're a Padres fan, Dodgers fan, you got to go fill the stadium. You Guardians guys making the trip out to Yankee Stadium. That honestly, what a bucket list trip. You're like a Guardians fan. You're like 24 years old, 2 years on your first jet. You like a couple bucks saved up. You and the boys come out to the Bronx, go sit in the bleachers, have beer thrown on you, and just absolutely, what a great experience. Game Time is the exclusive ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. You guys haven't given it a shot, check it out. We've had tons of Barstool fans using it. Lowest ticket prices you guys can possibly imagine. We said this before. Put it in the rotation. You're going to MLB playoff games. You're going to concerts. You're going to shows, but MLB playoff games more importantly. It's easy to use, amazing deals. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the U.S. You're going to love it. We're probably going to be using the Game Time app to go to at least 1 or 2 of these games. All you guys want to do, get a piece of this, download the Game Time app, go to the account tab to create a login, and redeem code STARTING9 for $20 off your first purchase. That's 20. We're just giving away $20 if you use this app. You just have to download it. How many apps do you download? Probably downloaded some weird apps in your life. Not you, Jake, but maybe. But just people in general. You find yourself downloading apps. I'll download that app. Download Game Time. Go to the account tab. You're going to create a login. Redeem code STARTING9, $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Download Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Closing thoughts before we get to Game 3 with the Dodgers and the Padres. Yeah, I think it's like, obviously the Dodgers are a huge favorite at the start of the series. I think it was like minus 180. I think they were the second highest favorites behind the Yankees going in the series. And, of course, it's a team that they dominated throughout the year. But this is the game. This is the beauty of baseball. It's 1-1. It's going back to San Diego. Throw all that shit out. And every Padres hitter's seen all these relievers. I mean, how many relievers does Dodgers have to use? There ain't nothing they're going to be surprised now about at this point. So just kind of like everybody's cards are on the table. Use Game Time. Go check it out. Muted, buddy. No big deal. Just a quick mute.
This is an opportunity in Game 3 for Blake Snell to remind people what he's capable of. It's an opportunity for him, and man, this guy's stuff is ridiculous. From the left side, a breaking ball that he can throw at a left-handed hitter's shoulder, end up in the right-handed batter's box. He's got 94 to 97, maybe a tick more than that. He's able to regulate his heart rate too, and kind of stay within himself, not let the moment dictate how he reacts. He's going up against Gosselin though, who's 16-1 with a 2.14. Amazing split, really, really good stuff. It's gonna be a challenge, but the Padres are at home, and Snell. I like Snell starting in Petco rather than in Dodger Stadium. Not that he's not capable of it. I just think that it's a better environment, more conducive to him, kind of showcasing his stuff, and having more success. So I really like that. And then next game you got Musgrove. So I
think the whole world's excited to see his next start.
The Padres are in a good spot, and of course, like you're up against Goliath in the Dodgers, but in order to get to the World Series and win the World Series, you got to play the best, and you got to beat the best teams out there. So I think the Padres should be very, very happy about the position they're in. Be proud of the supporting cast that showed up and helped lead them to victory tonight. I mean, because everybody deserves praise. Even if they didn't come through with an RBI or anything spectacular, this was a team victory. And that's my big takeaway, is it took everybody in that dugout to get the win tonight.
Unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable stuff in our first CS.
I mean, it's just so fun to watch. I might stay up all night. I got to play pickleball tomorrow at 7:30 against pros. I'm going to get my ass kicked. But it is what it is. I'm going to be up. I'm going to be up.
This is actually the best time. I mean, this is the busiest time of the year, too. I know a lot of guys listen to this Foul Barstool Chicago, too. We got, like, streams and stuff for the Bears. It doesn't matter. Like, it honestly does not matter. Sleep is at it. I don't care at all. I just want to be in front of this stuff. I'm loving being out here in New York and getting to talk to all the different guys that work here in their different fan bases, having the Guardians guys in. Obviously, the Mets guys, their heads are down. The Yankees boys. The rooting interests here are rabid and wild. I want to go over the American League. I feel like we should start and end with the ones we've watched today. We're going to have Joe Girardi come into the show in a little bit for just an unbelievably sweet behind-the-scenes conversation. I'll be honest, we're going to tease it more. I was just like a little nervous talking to Joe because I didn't know what to get because, the Phillies are up. They're playing right now. You're a part of that, and you're going to sit down and talk to us about it. Such a good conversation. We're going to get to that in a little bit. But let's just go back to Astros Mariners. And my first question about Astros Mariners is, as a starting pitcher, as a dominant starting pitcher in your career, Robbie Ray, big free agent. Obviously, he's probably a guy who went up to Scott Service long before the playoffs started. Whatever you need. I know we're going to be in different roles. Whatever you need from me. They put him in a whatever you need situation. Second pitch gives up just a Titanic bomb from Yordan Alvarez. We know how that sweet that is. We'll get to that. But put me in Robbie Ray's head at least coming out there. What would you say?
Well, let me give you a couple scenarios of how that went down. So it went down one of two ways. Scott Service came to Robbie Ray, or the pitching coach and Scott Service called him in and said, "Hey, how do you feel? How do you feel about not throwing your bullpen and being ready if we need you in a big situation to get an out, 2 outs in the game?" And he said, "Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll do whatever the team needs." And that's exactly what I would expect from Robbie Ray. I would have said the exact same thing. Or Robbie Ray went into Scott Service's office and said, I'd prefer not to throw my bullpen. I would rather be in the bullpen for the game, ready if you need me. So I wasn't privy to that information. We don't know exactly how it happened, but it was one of those two ways. It was either they went to him or he went to the coaching staff and said, if you need me, I'm there. My problem with the situation is, that's the first time he's done that. And, it seemed like a good matchup. You bring in Robbie Ray to face, one of the best left-handed power hitters in the game. And I just think the pitch selection was a little off. If you're in a 1-0 count against Yordan Alvarez, you just simply can't give him a fastball middle end to hit. And I know he probably wasn't trying to throw it there, but if anything,
it's the last place you'd want.
It's just if anything, and it's easy to second guess it because he could have taken it, he could have rolled it over to second base, and we're not even having this conversation, But you make the highest quality pitch you can to him, and you don't allow him to do damage. If you're 1-0, you throw him 3 sliders in a row, or you throw a fastball down and away, and if you miss off the plate. But again, that's a position that Robbie Ray's not comfortable in. I give him credit for going out there, and doing, whatever the team needed him to do. But like I said, it's a position he's never been in. It's a tough one. But you just ultimately worst case scenario, you walk him and you face the next guy.
Yeah, that's live to see another day. 1-0 Yordan Alvarez, but
yeah, and I don't know who was on deck, but I don't care if you load the bases. It's it was 2 outs. The tying run's at second base, but you still take your chances. I mean, he hit that ball. I mean, that ball, if those stands aren't there, it would have went through the back wall.
Yeah, that's a concourse ball if they have a concourse. If that's just like a regular outfield concourse, that's not a concourse.
Yeah, but then again, like on the flip side, Yordan Alvarez gave us one of the most historic moments in postseason history, and I know it's early to say that, but how big of a home run is that? You're down 2 runs. It's the bottom of the 9th, 2 outs, 2 guys on, and you hit a walk-off homer. I mean, it's not a tie game solo job. It's not. But even if it was a tying
a 3-run homer, so sweet.
It's so sweet. And then it's against Robbie Ray. It's left on left. Former Cy Young. Even if it was a game-tying home run, it's still a huge moment. But to be a walk-off, and then let's not forget Peña's at bat to lead to Yordan Alvarez, right? He grinded out in a bat, a laser to center field to get Yordan to the plate, and then the rest is history.
Probably not going to get a couple more Justin Verlander eggs.
Well, I mean, it's just bad timing, really. I mean, but it's a wash now because Houston won the game. But I said this as soon as the game ended. That's a devastating loss for the Seattle Mariners, and I don't know if they can come back from that. I don't know if you can lose a game like that where you had the lead in the 9th, you're 1 out away, and then you let it slip out of your fingers after you score 6 earned runs off of Verlander in 4 innings. You get 10 hits off of him. He gives up a home run, and then you lose a game. But look, Houston's bullpen covered 5 innings. They gave up 1 run. They kept them in it. It's just – and fuck, I mean, Seattle's offense, they performed. J-Rod had 2 hits. France had 3. Suarez had 2. Raleigh had a big RBI. Crawford had a big RBI. Kelenic had 2 hits. Like, there was production, up and down that order. So that's a good sign, especially against Verlander. So this is a major league team. they're not going to hang their heads and feel bad for themselves. You have to show up tomorrow and do what you can to win a game. I mean, it's not going to be easy now. You know, you got to trying to win, 3 games against this Astros team is not going to be easy, especially when you let a game slip out of your fingers the way it did. But I mean, crazier things have happened. I don't know if it's possible now.
Well, they were 25-29 at the end of May. And if you're a Mariners fan, you've been through it at least this season. You've been through it for 20 years. If you're in that Mariners clubhouse, you're one of these guys, J.P. Crawford or Jesse Winker or Mitch Haniger. You're in their, late 20s, early 30s. You've been grinding out your whole life, and now you find yourself in this chance. It's like, I know the sentiment is, it's going to be impossible to come back against the Astros after losing that. But, to me, I look at the playoff clubs out there. It's like, I think if there's a team that can withstand this, it would be this group of Mariners guys. It would be this group of guys that's like, whatever, we don't give a shit. A guy like Ty France, how long has he had to wait to get an opportunity? Or like, Cal Raleigh's having a coming out party. You think he gives a shit? He's coming out to play his best game tomorrow, and they have the off day.
They shouldn't give a shit. They absolutely shouldn't give a shit. But you're playing the Houston Astros.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks. You had a win in the books as close as you can get. The win probability,
literally
is through the roof.
Yeah, the only way it gets closer if there's 2 strikes on him, right? It was a 1-0 count, but you're right, and I'm not taking anything away from the Mariners. It's possible for sure, but when I just keep going back to how devastating that had to, and you see Scott Service's face with the ball off the bat. It's just like, fuck, okay. Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure everybody's second guessing the decision to bring in Robbie Ray, but like I said, if he hits a ground ball to second base, what a move, right? So it's easy to second guess your decision making after the fact, as we all know. But they're not going to back down. I mean, you've got Castillo, game 2. He's got to go up. The offense has to go up against Framber Valdez, who's amazing. One of the best sinkers in the game from the left side. It's not over, though. Definitely not over.
Yeah, that Astros lineup. Also, shout out Kyle Tucker, no BGs. I knew that. I know that. It's just sweet to see it in October. A couple guys, too. All right, Astros, Mariners. I think Mariners do throw a punch back. I don't think it's going to be a sweep. And I do really want to see this playoff game I'm still calling it Safeco, whatever it is, Safe Light, T-Mobile.
Yeah, who gives a shit?
Whatever. I don't care.
Whatever.
I just want to see that place.
Safeco.
It's like 50,000. Like, those are some rabid people. I've been saying this forever. Seahawks suck this year.
Yeah, and
taste the Mariners.
And you mentioned Tucker. Don't sleep on him. 107 RBIs, 30 homers. Like, nasty swing from the from the left side. And what does he do against when he's coming around third base with the third base coach? He's got like an arm stretch thing. I don't know what it is, but I like it.
Yeah, and Dusty. Okay, I just had to say it.
Is he still wearing gloves? He's still wearing rubber gloves.
I think so. He had batting gloves, and then he's always got the
No. He's wearing latex gloves.
Because of COVID?
I don't know.
Or he keeps the hands soft.
Maybe he's a germaphobe. I'm not
like
sure.
Lenny from Of Mice of Men. He Vaselines his hands, and then he puts not Lenny, the other one, the ranch hand, who kills. Does he kill Lenny? It's a long story. No, Gary Sinise does. It's been a while since Of Mice and Men. I think John Steinbeck wrote it. But all right, Guardians, Indians. But before I want to talk about our good friends at Ridge Wallet, guys. Ridge Wallet. Do we like Ridge? We love Ridge Wallet. The ultra slim minimalist wallet holds up to 12 cards plus room for cash. I'm a wallet enthusiast. I think a solution for your cards and your personal items is a very smart investment. But you want to have some style. You want to have some flair. You want some guarantees. So let's get into it here, guys. 30 colors and styles, including carbon fiber and burnt titanium. We've got RFID blocking technology that protects you from digital pickpocketers. You travel a lot. You're in foreign places. You don't feel comfortable. RFID technology on the wallet? Yes, please. Check. Secures anywhere from 2 to 6 days. You organize your the key case. How about a key case? I'm sick of having keys in my pocket. I walk around, I'm like a janitor, just the keys just jingling. Hey, Carl, can you open up this safe for me? Carl, can you? I locked the closet. I'm like the key man. Nope, not with the Ridge wallet. I got a key case, 2 to 6 keys. Organize your keys, compact silhouette, fold out for easy access. Colors, styling. You're a young guy moving to the city, get a new apartment key. You know, all this stuff. You got to take care of yourself. You got to be compact. You got to be lean. You got to be a hot piece of ass. Use some Ridge wallet. Check out their site, ridge.com. Use the code STARTING9 for 10% off your order. That's ridge.com. Code STARTING9 for 10% off your order. If you have a Ridge wallet and you see me out in Chicago and you show me your Ridge wallet, I will buy you a beer. I don't care where we're at. We could be at church. I will leave church. I will find the closest beer. I'll come see me. They're passing around the collection plate. You see me in the back. You go, I think that's Carl's stash. Go back, collection plate, flash the Ridge wallet. We're out. Tell your old lady I'll be back in a sec. I'll be back before he finishes the homily. Carl owes me a cold one. That's ridge.com. Use the code STARTING9 for 10% off your order. Speaking of wallets, a lot of people opened up their wallets to get into Yankee Stadium for the Guardians-Yankees game. Garrett Cole's first start in Yankee Stadium since signing a massive deal. And he showed up. We talked to the Yankees guys on the Tuesday episode. Yep. They were like, we don't know if we're going to get him or not. What are we going to get? What did you think? Was that a horse?
Yeah, of course it was. You know, this is 6 1/3 dominant innings. I think he had a walk and 8 punch-outs. His breaking ball was filthy. No more spider tack. He showed up. I mean, some of the swings that Jose Ramirez took, he was overmatched. And to overmatch a guy like Jose Ramirez is very impressive, but that's exactly what the Yankees paid Cole to come to the Yankees and do, is perform in October. And he did that against the Guardians in Game 1 of the DS. The pen was also lights out. They limited Jose Ramirez, no damage there. But, on the flip side of that, the Guardians held Judge 0 for 3, 3 punch-outs. He did have a walk. He did score a run. But the supporting cast, we had Harrison Bader with a home run. We had Rizzo with a 2-run homer. They ended up winning the game 4-1. And we talked about this a couple days ago. A multiple-run lead. We talked about this with the Yankees guys that we did our podcast with when I was in the car, gun in the back seat. We said a multi-run lead against the Guardians can feel like 6, 7, 8 runs, because they don't necessarily score runs in bunches. So the Yankees did plenty to get the job done. It was a commanding victory. And, no surprise that Rizzo shows up with a big 2-run homer. They win the game 4-1. They're in good position. They really are.
It does kind of suck for the Guardians because they have to play perfect baseball, and as soon as Gonzalez fumbled that ball and IKF got to third base, that's it. Like, sorry Guardians, for you to beat Garrett Cole in Yankee Stadium Game 1, you'd have to just play flawless baseball and then hopefully get that opportunity to make it 2-1 and just hang on, or if you can get it to 3-2. But once it got to 2-1, and then all right, so Rizzo's up. There's runners on, I want to say it's like second and third and 1 out, or no, maybe there's just a runner on third base with 1 out, or he's in a situation where it's like, hey, just hit a sac fly. It's a 3-2 count. I know this. You know this. Anybody who's watched Anthony Rizzo for like more than one game knows exactly what happens when Anthony Rizzo gets to 2 strikes. Knobs up, shaves off about an inch on the end of the bat. He's so good with 2 strikes.
Shortens the swing a little bit. Yep.
And it's just amazing that even though he's making the sacrifice and this compromise to be a better 2-strike hitter, to hit the ball hard in play, all right, I'm going to take a little bit of the power off the table here at 2 strikes, let the ball get deep. Instill that approach, he's able to just send one into the seats.
What's amazing about it too is when you shorten up your swing, you put the barrel on it, the ball still is going to travel. Right, so a lot of times the 2-strike approach does so many valuable things for the hitter. It allows you to control the barrel of the bat a lot more successfully, and just be short to the ball. Right, get the barrel to the ball, and he just happened to elevate it. right? And he did damage in a big situation. And at that point, it made the game feel out of reach with the way Cole was throwing the ball and the way the bullpen came in and took care of business. Yeah, it was just it was a solid win all the way around. You had timely hitting. I mean, the home run from Bader obviously was huge as well. And I heard Rizzo talk about it after the game. When you get a home run from a guy like that, not that he's not capable of hitting home runs, but it's not something that you expect all the time. You tend to expect things like that from like Gleyber, Torres, and Rizzo and Judge. But as we talked about with the Padres, it's about the production from the supporting cast, not just Soto and Machado, or not just Judge and Rizzo, but from the other 7 guys. And if you can get that combined with good starting pitching and a solid bullpen, you're going to be tough to beat.
Yeah. Yeah, the Guardians quite literally are going to have to play near flawless baseball to hang with that offense. That said, they are still sending Tristan McKenzie out Game 2 in Yankee Stadium. I thought they had an opportunity to send Bieber out there. They're going to keep Bieber for when they get back to Cleveland. And then I think they would be in a spot to run out Cal.
Well, is it McKenzie? Because it says Bieber on the.
Is it?
It says Bieber.
Right.
I mean, it says Bieber Cortez right now.
Okay, I like that then, because some of the chatter around here when we were talking about it was like, okay, well, nice thing is you have Bieber going. They're like, no, they're saving Bieber for Cleveland, but I don't know why you would.
Well, I think Bieber's going to. I think it's the right move, and if he pitches the way he did, against Tampa, you even the series going back to Cleveland. But then again, Cortez is a wild card. You never know. The guy could go out there and throw up 6 zeros. But I think that, and this is I'm giving you some crazy prediction nobody's ever heard, but I think that the starter that goes the deepest in the game, that team will win. And I know that it's not mind-blowing. It's not rocket science. But that's typically how things play out in the postseason. The team that gets the best performance from their starting pitcher will typically win that ball game.
Well, the gauntlet is set for these Yankees starting pitchers. Garrett Cole did a good job. I feel like the momentum then within that group, you see, if Cortez sees Garrett go out and throw well, I think that makes it easier for Nestor. I don't think it adds to the pressure. I think it's more of the camaraderie of like, all right, I'm gonna go. It's my turn, right? Like, I don't know if that was with you guys, but I just feel like if your guy goes out and does well, and then the ball's in your hands that next game, it's like, a little bit elevated. All right, Cole went out, dealt, my turn. Severino's gonna see it. He's gonna want the ball. Like when your guys are pitching, I feel like it's like, all right, my turn. I want that ball. I want to be out there. I want the runners on first and second with 2 outs. I want the crowd going nuts. I want to get my guys fired up and do my job.
Yeah, it's a fact. I mean, you want to take the ball and, show up for your city and your teammates, the organization. That's how it goes. And there's a lot on the line. We all know when spring training starts, the ultimate goal is to get into the postseason, make a deep run into October, and have an opportunity to win a World Series. And the teams that are still standing, each and every one of them still have that opportunity. And everyone knows that. And, the most pressure, that remains in the postseason is all in the starting pitching. And that's fine. I think that's something that we take great pride in. Is putting together the best performance we can for our team. And we know, because if we do that, not only do we have an opportunity to win the game, but we put ourselves in position to, kind of have that confidence and that momentum rub off on the next guy. And then he potentially gives us an even better opportunity to move forward in the series with an advantage, and then advance to the CS and so on and so forth.
Hey, you speak of rubbing off. I like a good rub on a steak. I like a good rub on my meat. And I love Omaha Steaks when it comes to my meat. From tailgate parties to busy weeknights, the flavor experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to savor all the flavors of fall with their mouth-watering assortments of perfectly aged steaks, ultra-juicy burgers, and easy-to-prepare comfort meals that are ready in a flash. I have talked a ton about Omaha Steaks and how delicious they are, and that's because Omaha Steaks are flat out, categorically, objectively, without debate, hesitation, or anything that could even be remotely argued, They're nothing less than delicious. It's Omaha Steaks. Omaha Steaks, delicious. It just hits. It's like it's just like get in the box, get in the dry ice, open it up, seeing the Frankfurters all packed up nice and tight, the juicy burgers. We're giving away a huge promo here, 50% off site-wide by shopping their semi-annual sale. The sale only happens twice a year. It's on now. 50% off delicious customer favorites. And when you use the promo code STARTING9 at checkout, we're going to give you another $30 off your order. There's some terms that do apply to this, so go check it out. But 50% off the site and an extra $30 off your order for Omaha Steaks, the world's best beef. The most trusted brand when it comes to it, naturally aged for the ultimate tenderness, juiciness, and flavor. Every steak and every entree is flash frozen, vacuum sealed, and ready to share with your family. Again, guys, I got the mini green egg. Jake's got a couple of the big boys. The charcoal's hot. The steaks are delicious. Don't wait. Go to omahasteaks.com. Enter starting9 at checkout. Stock up on all fall flavor today. That's 50% off site-wide, an extra $30 when you use starting9. Code starting9 at checkout for an extra $30 off your order. Minimum order may be required, but you don't know unless you go to omahasteaks.com and use our promo code starting9. So check that out. Starting9 omahasteaks.com. There's nothing like doing an ad read like that where you just know. You just know. It's like Game Time Delivers, Ridge Wallet, Omaha Steaks. We're on a heater. It's like I feel like I'm Tito Francona just looking at the bullpen, being like, any guy I bring in here, that's how I feel doing these ad reads. So we do have a manager to talk to, though. I want to talk to Joe before we do Phillies Braves.
Perfect.
This is a cool interview. Jake, you played for him. It's cool.
He's a good man.
We're just talking to guys you played, and
I
like that angle.
And he talked about how he wasn't a great hitter. I was like, hey, you're a 267 career hitter. Give yourself a little more credit, So, in between his time with the Yankees and the Phillies, he worked for the network and for Fox. He's doing a little bit of broadcasting, but I guarantee you he will be in the dugout in the near future, leading another team to many wins and hopefully into October.
So let's talk to Joe. You're going to get a ton of insight in this 2022 Phillies team, some matchup stuff with the Braves, his own personal stories. If you're a Phillies fan, you're like, I've been walking around talking to the Phillies guys. They're like, hey, we're talking to Joe. They're like, oh, he's talking to you guys? Yes. Joe Girardi is sitting down with us. Let's get to it. All right, we're in the interview portion of today's show. We are joined by Joe Girardi. Joe, thank you so much for your time today. What's going on, man?
Well, I just got done working out. I'm sure Jake's got his workout in, like 2 already. I know he's on Central Time, but I'm sure he's got 2 in because he can't let that body go. Can't do it.
I'm so glad you opened with that because Carl and I were just talking before we started the show, and he said, you know what? I really got to get back in the gym. I need you to hold me accountable. And I said, I'm in there every morning. You got to have your routine. When you do things you don't want to do every single day, then it's like, oh, you start to enjoy doing it. And I was gonna tell Carl, like, Joe's a freak. He loves to work out. He doesn't miss workouts. So is there some advice that you would give for Carl? Because I talk to him until I'm blue in the face and I can't get him to buy in. And I'm not with him every day. So what would you tell him?
If you're not self-disciplined, I think it's important that you meet someone at a gym every day, right? If you're self-disciplined like Jake, you don't need to meet anyone. You can do it wherever you are. But if you're not self-disciplined, I would say get a partner who is, be accountable to him, and show up every day. You got to show up. Showing up's half the battle.
Just getting your ass in the door. I work out at home. I don't need an accountability partner. Joe doesn't either. Some people do. Carl's one of those guys. It's totally fine. So you mentioned discipline, and discipline is showing up every day whether you want to or not. Now, how do you describe the difference between motivation and discipline for people? Because for me, it's impossible to be motivated every day. Discipline is, to me, doing things without motivation. Do you kind of buy into that as well?
Yeah. I think discipline is doing the right thing at the right time all the time. That's discipline. So, Carl, if you're supposed to show up at 8 o'clock to work out, you go at 8 o'clock, the right thing at the right time all the time, and you're there every day. I mean, that's discipline. Motivation, I think, comes from within, the drive inside of you that some people's motivation is greater. And whatever the purpose is behind the motivation, I know for me, my motivation came from the fear of failure. I'm not saying that that's a bad motivation or it's a good motivation, but it's what drove me to be the best that I could do every day and make sure that I was prepared, whether I was a manager, a coach, a broadcaster. So I think your motivation comes from within, and it's whatever drives you. And those are the ways that I look at motivation and discipline. And discipline, you know, I think is harder today because there's so many distractions and players can be, ridiculed or they are judged in so many ways now and they see it. So sometimes they're so worried about what the perception of them is that they get away from the dedication part.
So, I guess going back to your playing career, that transition as a manager, were these things that were foundations as a player and easy for you to lean on as a manager? And given that you came in when you started your, managerial career, I feel like, you did kind of like explode onto the scene in a sense.
Yeah. Carl, I think that a lot of my habits came from being my home life. My parents were very dedicated and very disciplined people. They worked very hard, and I think I learned from them and wanting to please them. I think I kind of followed in their footsteps, but it did transfer over to managing, and I prepared in a lot of ways the same way. The difference about managing and playing to me is a manager, you got to answer for everybody else. As a player, you only got to answer for yourself. So learning how to do that with that same discipline and motivation was really important to me. And the other thing that I did was I relied on my coaches where I felt like it wasn't my expertise. Hitting was not my expertise. Pitching was not my expertise. Catching, that was my expertise. That was probably what I was best at in calling games. But I had to learn and be disciplined enough not to micromanage, to say, hey, turn it over to this guy or turn it over to that guy. I mean, I don't know what it's like to be on a mound like Jake does. I have no idea. I mean, I did it as a freshman in high school. I mean, that doesn't count. So I have no idea what the pressure is, being an ace of a staff, pitching in a playoff game. I don't understand those feelings, but I understand what it's like to catch. So that's what I, chose to do. And I think that really helped me in my transition. And I think when you make a transition like that, you have to surround yourself with people that complement you, not people that are the same as you, but people that complement you.
Well, 267 career average, Joe. Don't sell yourself short. I think you know enough.
Yeah,
I
it
know
was
you know
soft,
enough
Jake.
about hitting.
It was soft, Jake, and you know it playing at Wrigley Field that high grass is great for a lot of infield hits and
Sure.
swinging bunts. I was really proficient at that.
Yeah. So are you? I know you've probably got things in the works. You always stay busy. Obviously, you're very dedicated to your family. I believe all three of your kids are pretty much grown and kind of off doing their own thing.
Not quite yet.
Not
I
yet.
still have a sophomore in high school at home. My youngest daughter, Lena. Dante's in college playing baseball, and my oldest daughter, Serena, has graduated. So I still have, I'm still around them all because one is in West Palm, one is in Miami. Dante's in Miami, and we live in Boca. So we're surrounded by our kids, so we see them a lot.
Now, how's Kim handling you being home a lot? Does she want you to get into something right away? Are you guys enjoying some time together? What's you have a plan for the future?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would love to manage again, and I think you have to, prepare that if you don't get another chance, that I'm not just going to sit at home because I can't sit at home. I will drive everybody crazy. So, I broadcast 6 Cubs games this year during the course of this, when I wasn't working. I plan on broadcasting more if I don't manage and doing that. Do I drive her nuts? No, I think she's used to it. I think, the weird thing is when you're a baseball player and you're gone that 8 months out of the year, and then we come back and have to kind of integrate ourselves back into the family life. I got accused of messing up the kids a lot, right? Spoiling them, not doing, not telling them no and all that. Well, I've gotten much better at that. So I don't get in as much trouble as I used to.
So I guess at this point, do you reflect? You're a manager? Are you a manager first or a ball player first?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. The only thing, I mean, I would say I'm a ball player first, and then you get to a certain age, and those days are over, and you understand those days are over. And I love managing. I really do. I think it's a great profession. I love the relationships. I love the competition. I love seeing players compete, right, at the highest level, and how they go about their business, and how players can be so different in how they do it, right? Like what worked for Jake didn't work for an Aaron Nola, or didn't work for a John Lester. I mean, what worked for Jake probably would have broke most players in half. Um, but it worked for Jake, right? And I love how people do it in different ways. You know, you have all shapes and sizes in our game. I mean, you think about Alejandro Kirk, right? I mean, if you saw him walking down the street, you wouldn't think that he was one of the best hitters in the American League. You just wouldn't do it. He's an outstanding catcher, too. And that's what's so great about our game. Basketball players stick out, football players stick out, baseball players don't necessarily stick out. And that's what I love about it.
Did it take you a while to really get a grasp on how to manage a clubhouse, deal with personalities? You were obviously in New York, where the expectations are so high. You have superstars combined with, like journeymen or young players. And how important is it to have a clubhouse that can kind of police themselves? And did you have moments where the clubhouse wasn't able to police itself and you had to intervene more than you would like? And how much of a benefit is that to a manager to have a clubhouse so you don't necessarily have to worry about the culture? It just kind of happens naturally.
Well, I think it's really beneficial, because I think that players talking to players means more than a manager or a coach, right? When you feel that pressure of not letting your teammate down, that's a big deal. And for players to make sure that players are prepared and do things the right way, that's a big deal, because no one wants to stick out as an outcast. And I think when you're managing personalities, I think you allow players to be themselves as long as it's not detrimental to a team. Everyone does things different ways, and that's something I had to learn as a player, right? I was not the type of player that could be laughing before and back. But then you see a guy like Derek Jeter could be talking to the guy in the front row, a little giggle, and then go up and hit a two-run double. And you learn that each person is different. I was a guy that, as I told you, I was always scared to fail, so I always prepared and prepared and prepared, and that's how I handle it. But everyone's not like me, and I'm okay with that, because I think that's what makes a clubhouse fun. If everyone was the same, it wouldn't be enjoyable. You wouldn't laugh. And I think, like, I used to say that my favorite part of the day in New York was my office was, I don't know, 25 yards from the food room, and I would leave my door open. And during the time between BP and the game, guys would eat. And just to hear the guys laughing and howling and having fun, to me, that was the best part of my day. And that's kind of what you want in a clubhouse. You want a clubhouse that knows how to prepare themselves, but knows how to laugh and have fun, because this game's a grind. I mean, this is tough. This is, 100 and, I don't know, 200 straight days of going to work. And then the prize is if you get to the playoffs and there's a sudden end for a lot of teams, and it's really disappointing. There's only one team that's not going to have that sudden end. So I think, Jake, when you have a clubhouse and that runs itself and guys hold each other accountable, it's really powerful. And at times I've had to do more. I mean, I managed a Marlin team that we had 23 rookies during the course of the year. And that was not at the time where you'd have 55 players come through a clubhouse. You might have 37, 38, 40 during the course of the year. And you had to do a little bit more of it. But you got to rely on your veteran guys that know how to do it. And when it does happen that way, it's really powerful.
Did you have to manage more at the start of your career, or was it a harder, different job managing? Like, I mean, we're teammates with a lot of those guys, and coming in a couple of years later, like, hey, Derek, we're gonna hit you second today or something like. Versus, this year analytics shift, all the different, just all the different shit that's going on and information that's going on. Which one was more challenging, walking in with basically no experience to a room of Hall of Famers that you used to play with, or the evolution of the data and being in Philadelphia this year?
I think it's more now because of how many people are involved in all the decisions. Before, you'd sit down with your general manager, some scouts, maybe your coaches, and you'd go over a plan, right? And you'd have different opinions. Now, I mean, you get 20 opinions on a lineup, easy every day, and it's nice when a lineup is consistent. I think players like it to be consistent, but some markets can't afford to have like Mookie Betts and Trey Turner and Freddie Freeman at the top of their order, no matter, every day, no matter what, because some teams have to do it by platoon. And I think players are creatures of habit for the most part. And this is a game of repetition. So I think they like to be in the same place. But I think it's harder now because of all the input, which I always love input. Like I'm a math guy and I love numbers and I believe numbers tell a story. And I used to get made fun of early in my managerial career because of my binder, because I studied numbers. I studied numbers as a catcher, right? And tendencies. And now they're called analytics. A lot of ways they were called tendencies. And there's different ways to do things. But I think it's harder to manage now. And I think you have to manage it's harder to manage players now because of social media, because I think the players feel bad enough when they fail. They get piled on now. I mean, I used to joke that if you were in a mall and you were walking and you tripped and you fell into a fountain or something or ran into something, maybe 10 people saw. Now millions of people see, and it's embarrassing, right? I mean, it's difficult. So I feel for players now, and I think you have to be aware of that and sensitive to that and understand it's much harder to play today than when I played. And, that's not just an old guy being an old guy. It just is. I mean, it's hard to play today.
Well, there had to be times as a manager where you, especially within the last few years, where you felt handicapped in a sense. Like there seems like it's an overload of information and they're almost telling you or trying to tell you exactly where a guy should play, what the order should be. So was it ever slight, and I know you love numbers, but was it ever frustrating in a sense to almost be dictated like what you should do in the game rather than like, I'm the manager, I understand the game, like allow me to put the lineup together the best way I see fit?
Well, Jake, I got to tell you, I was fortunate. I didn't have to deal with that, right? Every stop that I made, I did not have to deal with that. They allowed me to make the lineup. Now, I sought, advice from, the analyst from every team that I was on because I wanted the different opinions. There are times when a lineup is struggling. You're like, okay, do I just stick with it? Do I change it? Do you have any ideas? I would ask those questions all the time. I would ask my coaches. I would ask my hitting coaches. I think coaches can tend to be more creatures of habit than an analyst can. An analyst will look at a number. And I think sometimes you have to weigh the benefits of changing it to the benefits of maybe losing a player. And I can tell you, like, when we acquired our new players in Philadelphia this year, I would talk to the analysts a lot about our lineup and the way it should be, right? And moving players around in the lineup, where a Schwarber hit, a Castellanos hit, a Rio Muto, you'd be surprised how little it changed the amount of runs that you scored, right? It'd be like 757.3 to 758, point 4. And I'm like, okay, I'm racking my brain over this when this is what an analyst would say in a sense that how it changes it. Because, you think about when you got your 5 best hitters or 6 best hitters in a lineup, they're going to hit in the first 6 spots. It's not like you're going to put one of them ninth and one of them eighth, right? And you understand that the higher in the lineup, the more at bats you're going to get. You want to create opportunities where they have to pitch to certain players. You don't want them to be able to bring a lefty in to face 2 lefties out of 3 spots, in a sense, if those guys really struggle against left-handers. But it doesn't change it as much as people think. And that's what I was really surprised at. And I think you have to weigh what it does to the player and what it does to the clubhouse as well. And that's the manager's job.
Now, it's very interesting you say that because obviously, we all know like your leadoff hitter is going to get the most at bats, the most opportunities at the plate. Now, with that said, would you not want a guy like Harper to potentially get the most at bats? It seems to me if you go about it that way, you might want to hit him first and have Schwarber in the 4-hole, or is that, I'm sure there's something I'm not seeing there, but for whatever reason, I just don't necessarily love Schwarber in that leadoff spot. I mean, it's worked out for him.
I think he's the guy that was most comfortable there. I don't think Harp would be comfortable there. So that's where you're weighing, in a sense, or, we tried JT there, right? Because JT was a pretty good on-base guy, probably the best base runner on the team. There wasn't a comfort zone, right? So you try different things. And I think, like a guy with Harp, like when I think about Harp, I think about, okay, I want him to hit with runners on when they can't pitch around him. I mean, that's how I think about it. And I think a lot of times your best hitter should hit number 2 because you want them to have an opportunity in the first inning to have someone on before they come to the plate. But you also want them to hit in the first inning. So a lot of times the greatest spot to hit was 4th, in a sense, right? Well, that guy may not hit in the first inning, and then if he doesn't hit in the first inning, he's leading off the second, and I don't want that. So to me, I think lineup construction is really important, where you're protecting your best hitters and you're giving them the most opportunity to do a lot of damage.
Explain to me Segura in the 7-hole, because he's probably one of the best bat to ball, guys in the league. And it's just a very interesting lineup construction. And I mean, I do like it. And like I said, there's things that I don't necessarily know as far as like the detailed numbers of why they're doing it. But, is Segura not an ideal guy for the leadoff spot either?
Well, he does not, against right-handers, get on base at a real high clip, right? And during the course of a season, you're going to see right-handers more than left-handers. So he doesn't get on base at a real high clip. He has great bat-to-ball skills, unbelievable. He does not strike out a lot. So I think a lot of times you're not going to hit a guy like that at the top of the order because, A, he doesn't get on base a lot, and B, there's not a ton of damage. It's not a guy that's going to have an 800-plus OPS probably against right-handers. So you move him down a little bit, you maybe do some things in there, and it gives you a really good hitter in that bottom third that if you have a guy hitting second that does a lot of damage, or first, like Schwarber, there's a chance that he'll be on base, not as high as clipped as some of the other guys that are ahead of him, but when those guys come up, and that's advantageous too.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Well, it's a very balanced lineup, and you make a good point. You get to the point in the lineup at times where, say, you're coming down to your last at bat and you have like 7, 8, 9, and it's like, well, shit. Like, not that those guys aren't capable, but having a guy like Segura in that spot, it's like, okay, this is a hell of a bat to have up in that situation. So definitely a balanced lineup. And it's interesting to hear you talk about that, how Segura, OPS might not be as high against righties, and you're going to face predominantly right-handed, pitching. So that makes perfect sense.
And the other thing is, I think he's a pretty decent RBI guy, and those guys in front of him get on at a little higher clip because he does have great bat-to-ball skills and does not strike out a lot. So you want him to have some RBI chances because I think he's pretty good at it. And he also gives you the options. If you're struggling at the top of the order, you can do a lot of things with him. You can hit and run with him. He can run. And a lot of times if you have a guy like Gene Segura up early and he gets thrown out on the bases and you got a Schwarber or Bryce Harper coming up, you're like, come on. Or he does steal the base, and now they're going to pitch around those two guys, and they're not afraid to walk them. So again, it's trying to create a lineup where your best hitters get the most chances to be really productive.
So one of the players I was asked about was Alec Baum. I think has earned a tremendous amount of respect from the start of the season. One of the all-time great gaffes from a fan moments to say, "I hate this fucking place," and of course, what a natural reaction. And personally, I think he's bounced like his career trajectory, or just the way the season's played out for him. Spending some times with Philly fans over the week and how much respect he's earned from them. It just seems like a guy, just gritty ball player. You were with him at the time of these comments. I know from your experiences in New York, where like people just pile on and all this stuff. What was that conversation like, or how have you seen him bounce back from what could have been a very bad, huge could have swung the pendulum the other way, where like he's out the door at the end of the season?
Well, I think one of the things that really helped is you had veterans in the clubhouse that got to him right away. I talked to him right away on how to handle it, right? Hey, I was emotional. I screwed up. It just, I mean, I said to someone, I said, if I had 3 pass balls in an inning and 2 runs scored, I'd probably say I hate this place too, right? Right? I just would have covered it in my mask and probably been a little smarter about how I did it. But I thought guys got to him. And I think what really helped him too is you had guys like a Nick Castellanos who understood what it was like to be at third base as a young player and to struggle there and to feel that weight and like, do they want me there? Does the pitcher want me there? And I think that those guys helped him get over it. Schwarbs and Gibby and these guys helped him get over it. And then you have a fantastic infield instructor in Bobby Dickerson. And I think one of the things that hurt him in the beginning of the year was he didn't have enough time to get with Bobby Dickerson and Kevin Long to make the adjustments that he had to make, right? If you go back to his 2021 season, he was missing a lot of fastballs and people were pitching him up and his swing was too long, and he was not catching up. Well, over about a 6 to 8 week period, they got to him and helped him make these adjustments, and I think it's turned him into a much better player. He's always had good bat to ball skills. He's always been a guy that uses the whole field. I think he's at like a 45, to 50 double guy as he continues to grow as a hitter. He may never hit 40 home runs, but I think 20 is in the realm. I think he's going to hit for a high average. But there were really good coaches in there that understood what they needed to do. And that's the importance of having good coaches, because it's one thing to give a player an analysis, okay? Like, okay, Jake, your curveball, it's too much of a side spin and it's not spinning like it was the year before when it was so effective. Okay, well, how do I change that, right? You need to have a coach that helps you change that and can take the data and give you legitimate drills to help you change the course of what's going on. And I think when you talk about a Caleb Cotham, excellent. I think Kevin Long is as good as it gets. Bobby Dickerson is good as it gets. They really helped, and Alec Baum and some of the, I brought up Caleb because I think, Jay can relate to that, a pitching coach, that really changed the course of his season. It changed the course of Bryson Stott's season. Bryson Stott didn't have a 2-strike approach, right? He had a big leg kick. He was overwhelmed the first 2 months of the year. But over time, through some injuries, he stayed up. Over time, Kevin Long got to him and made him a pretty darn good hitter. And this kid, I think, is going to be around a long time. I think he's between a 280 and 300 hitter and might even hit more than that as time goes on. Because if you look at how bad he was in the beginning and then go from like June on, I mean, the effects took place and it really helped him.
You can't overstate the importance of great instructors enough. And I think most people expect like the best coaching to be at the big league level, and that's not always the case. So, I mean, the Phillies, and you can't. It's not on the stat sheet. You can't. It's not going to be on the scorecard. But like you said, having guys like Kevin Long, having instructors there that don't just give you information, they know how to teach. And I think that analytics affected us a little bit, where it was like you said, here's your spin rate, I need you to spin the ball harder, or here's the spin access, we need it 3 degrees this way. Well, how the hell do I do that? And having some of those old school guys that know how to instruct really changed the trajectory of guys' careers. And it's very evident with guys in the Phillies, like you just alluded to with Stott and with Alec Baum. And I think, I just wanted to touch on Alec real quick. I think that the reason he might not be a 40-plus home run guy is because he uses the entire field so well. Like he's like doubles to the right center gap, on command. He's going to hit for a high average. And I kind of, compared him to a guy like Jason Worth. He's ever since I saw him, I said, this kid is going to be really good at this level.
Yeah, I agree. I think, there like when he first came on, I mean, he was outstanding his rookie year. And then the league adjusted to him, right? And to me, the sign of a player that's going to be really good is a player that can adjust back. But as you said, you have to have really good coaches that understand a swing, understand the swing mechanics, the swing path, how players are attacking you, what your swing looks like when it's good, to help you make those adjustments. Because I can't just say, okay, Alec, you need to shorten your swing, right? Okay, how do I do that, right?
Yeah, that's something you tell like a 9-year-old. Like, hey, just
right?
shorten up.
And if you leave it to like a player, it'll drive a player batty because he'll try 20 different things and he'll try one thing one day, right? And when he doesn't have success, he's going to try another thing the next day, and then he's going to ask the guy next to him and the guy next to him and his buddy that's on the other team, and all of a sudden they have so much information, it becomes confusing. So when you have a coach that players believe in and then have had success with other players in different places, like Kevin Long had success in New York. He won a championship there. He won one in Washington. He got to the World Series with the Mets. Bobby Dickerson, you think about all the Gold Glove infielders that he had in Baltimore and what he did with guys in San Diego. I can trust this guy because he's really made a difference in people's lives. I mean, he made Mania from a shortstop. He made him a third baseman, right? Well, I mean, and as good a third baseman as I've seen, right? So I think having that like resume, players believe in him, and they really believe in him, and it's made a big difference over there.
So I'm looking at your resume before we're doing the interview and just want to get polished and prepped and doing the stats. And it's like crazy to say this, like you average about 90 wins a season as a manager. The body of work right out of the gate, tremendous. So good that when you left New York, it was like, hey, you have some time. You're going to pick the right opportunity. So, like, respectfully, now at this point, where can you say when you look back at your time with Philadelphia, like, would you change anything differently about how you went about you manage? Or because, like, what is it when you look back at Philly? Or is there anything? Because it seems like from where they went, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's things that you would do different. I think there's always things that you learn from. But I think the team was just primed to take off. We had some challenges early on, and I'm not going to make excuses, but we had some challenges early on where some pitchers weren't as far as long as a lot of other teams' pitchers were when they came into camp. We had some guys that were injured a little bit and just didn't throw well. We had some guys that struggled early on. We added a couple players with 2 weeks to go, and one was having a baby and got there late, and then the other guy got there 10 days before spring training. I mean, there's just a lot of things that happened, right, that I just think that the team was primed to take off. Our schedule in May was absolutely brutal. I think we played the Mets 6 times, the Dodgers 7 times, Seattle 3 times, the Braves 4 times. I mean, we just were going through a hard time, and we were losing some tough games. So I think it was, would I change a lot? No, because I think that, I felt like we were making progress, but it wasn't necessarily showing up in the wins columns. I mean, we had a really good road trip to LA and Seattle where we went 5-2, and then Harp had the shot and didn't play for a week, right? So there were just things that we went through. Do I have any regrets? Yeah, I mean, of course you'd love to be there. I mean, I mean, whenever you get let go, right? And, fortunately, none of you have been fired as a manager, I don't think,
As a
or,
player.
yeah, it hurts, right? It hurts. And it affects your family. I don't think people really think about how it affects your family and your life. And it hurts. But it's part of the gig. And I'll never forget what Don Zimmer told me when I got fired the first time, basically. He said, "Welcome to the club, pal." you know. And Don Zimmer was someone that I always looked up to, and I was with 10 out of the first 11 years, and he meant so much to my life and my career. And I thought I was going to get this brilliant advice, and that was his advice. Welcome to the club, pal.
Man, I've got, it's a two-part question, but I wanted you to talk a little bit about a guy who doesn't get as much national recognition as he should. He's quiet. He goes about his business. He's one of the hardest workers I've ever seen. A guy in Aaron Nola, and just how good he is, and how important to the Phillies he is. And watching him pitch the way he did, in the wild card series versus St. Louis, and they've got a 1-0 lead. Just how good the Phillies should feel about having a guy like that, and not to mention Zach Wheeler, but just kind of talk a little bit about Nola and how good he is about his preparation, managing a lineup, and obviously his stuff speaks for itself.
Well, I think when you look at their top three starters, I think they're way underrated. I'll put them up against anyone's in this playoff. If you take 1, 2, 3 of any club, I'll put those three guys up because I had them and I know how good they are. And when you talk about Aaron Nola, you're talking a guy that is always prepared, is very good in the clubhouse, is easygoing, is a very easy player to love. Is going to give you everything he's got. He's never going to make an excuse. He communicates with all this. Even though he does all this work, he is still there for his teammates, right? I mean, at times I thought he worked too much, right?
Yeah.
I was always because he would fatigue down the stretch. But it has not happened this year. I'm really, really happy for him. And he's got a great-looking Bernedoodle. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
It was my daughter's favorite dog that you would see that would come to the park. And he's a wonderful man.
Well said.
I like that. And then we're talking aces on the Philly. I mean, the difference between what's the difference between a mound visit between Wheeler and Nola?
Wheeler is very quiet and subdued. Wheeler, a lot of times, you don't even know he's there, right? When he's in the clubhouse, you don't even know he's there, right? Nola, you see, he's walking around doing a lot of things. They're both very easy to manage. Wheeler, you ask him, Sam, it's like whatever you want, right? You can never get like what he's truly feeling. So you have to learn to read him a little bit. Like he'd stay out there until his arm fell off and wouldn't tell you. I mean, that's the kind of guy he is. So you really got to be able to read it. And they're both that way. But it was a really easy three guys to manage. Ranger, I'll never forget, I asked him, Ranger, we're thinking about putting you in starting rotation. What do you think? And he's like, let me think about it, right? And I'm thinking, right? And it's like, there's no heartbeat. Like, I would never worry about any situation being too big for Ranger, ever, right? And I think when you look at those three guys, they're all like that. And that's why I feel like they're really dangerous. Now, I think the key is going to be their bullpen as they move forward. They're going to score runs. Their defense at times has been a bugaboo, but they've done a pretty good job. But their big three are as good as anyone's, and I think they have just as good a chance as anyone to make it to the World Series and win the whole thing.
I've got one more for you, Joe, and I know it's got to be tough not being there, but you've got your guy in Rob Thompson, who's now managing. Have you had conversations with him, during the wild card series and now in the DS, and just how happy are you for him? For him to be in that position. I know it was a position you had, but you guys are very close.
Yeah.
How have some of those conversations gone?
Well, I'm extremely happy for him because I think he should have been given a shot a long time ago. The most prepared coach I've ever been around, and has been doing this forever. I mean, we're like the same age. I'm going to be 58, and I think he's 59. And he was actually running spring training for the Yankees when I was a player, and was the director of the minor leagues when I was a player. So he's been coaching a long time. So I'm extremely happy for him. I'm not surprised that he's having success. Um, I've had a couple conversations, some text, but I kind of give him his space, right? Because I can't imagine how many texts he's had. I can't imagine how many texts he's had to answer during all this time. But I'm truly happy for him and his wife Michelle and their kids, and I'm glad he's doing well. And I'm pulling for him because me and this guy were together like 13 years, as sidekicks. And there was a tear when I departed from both of us because we had meant so much to each other. And I remember when the Yankees, kind of let him go, and Gabe called me about him. And I said, Gabe, if you want a guy, a bench coach, that you never have to worry about your team being prepared, your team understanding what they need to do, the information that you're going to get from him is always going to be right, and a guy that works his butt off, he's your guy. I mean, because I knew from working with him all those years, and he's just taken it right over to managing, and he's going to do a great job.
Well said, man.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, one last time, sorry, confirm or deny the story. I had a buddy break spring training camp with you as a second baseman named Dean Anna in like 2013, 14. Yes, good buddy of mine. I'm from the suburbs of Chicago.
Yes.
He played at Ball State. I played at Illinois. Very good friend from the neighborhood and all that stuff. He just had this quick story. I was wondering if you could confirm or deny this. When he got back from pro ball, we're all hanging out that winter. It's like, dude, what was it like? What was it like? You're a Yankee, at the bar hanging out. And he said that the coolest thing was that, like, nobody really did anything until Derek Jeter was ready to go. Is that true or false? He said, like, Jeter would come out and be like, if he needed to stretch for like an extra 15 minutes, he was just like the way Derek Jeter carried himself around the field. Like, it was just this unspoken thing. Like, when it was time to go, Jeter would tell you it's time to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think guys all had their own routines. But I think a lot of the young kids looked up to Derek because they knew he was always prepared. I mean, Derek was one of those players you never had to worry about. You never had to worry about, if he was prepared to play that night. And I think a lot of the young kids followed him because of that, because of his routine. And he would be great. He would take ground balls with the younger players, and they'd have a competition. And there was no way that you could win the competition. There was just no way. Whether he made 4 errors and you made 3, somehow he would win.
And he would count them. He would count. And if you made an error, he would say, hey, that's 16, that's 17.
And he would yell them out too, so everybody knew. But yeah, I mean, he was a leader by his example of what he did on the field the other day, and a lot of players followed him.
Thank you for letting my buddy break spring training camp as a starting second baseman for the. That was.
I loved having him.
We had some drinks.
And I expect Carl you to be in the gym at 8:00 tomorrow.
You
Yes,
better
sir.
be. You better be. Before we let you go, who's your pick? I think the Phillies get past Atlanta. Do you think anybody can beat Houston or LA?
I do. I think the Phillies can beat LA, and here's why. The Phillies hit left-handed starters better than they hit right-handed starters. And they were 4-3 against them during the course of the year, and I think they believe that they can beat them, right, in a sense. So, yeah, LA is going to be a tough out for anyone. Houston, I would expect to see Houston in it, just because I don't think there's a weak part of their game, right? And Verlander had his one dumper of a start.
He did.
He's not having another one. It's just not going to happen.
No.
I'll be shocked. So I think it could be Houston and one of 3 teams: the Phillies, the Braves, or the Dodgers.
Agreed. Yeah, Seattle. That to me, that was just an absolute dagger that probably ended their
It's hard
series.
to overcome.
I mean, it was
It's
just
really hard.
oh god, that's heartbreaking.
And I love Luis Castillo and what he brings to the table. And Houston really has not seen him a lot, when you talk about at bats. But that's a complete club. And you talk about like all the things they do. They hit home runs. They hit for average. They don't strike out. they run the bases and they steal bases, and their percentage was like the third highest in all of baseball. They don't make mistakes.
You're right. You're right, man.
Well, thanks, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for joining Starting
Coach,
Nine with
and-
us, man. And we know that you're going to be doing great things, probably some broadcasting. And give me a call, man. I'll do a game with you.
So that's Joe Girardi. Love it off the top. Discipline, accountability. I need it because I got to get in the gym. That little pep talk off the top. He's like, hey, Carl, I appreciate you guys doing that because my wardrobe, if it weren't for Doer jeans, I'd be screwed. Doer jeans in the wardrobe now, like that's the only thing that's keeping my waist, keeping this body feeling good and comfortable because every time I leave my house, I look like a fucking rock star. It's time to simplify your wardrobe. Join me. Dress with Doer. They set out to create versatile staple items that can travel from a hike to work and even out to dinner. Jake, you got some Doer products. You were telling me, man, the bulge, the quads, everything fits into the jeans.
Well, I wear them at the ranch. I wear them.
Oh, what an endorsement.
Well, listen. You throw them on with boots. You get a poncho, collared shirt on. You're ready to work, and they hold up. One of my favorite things about Doer jeans is the pockets. I'm a huge fan of the details in jeans. Doer does it right. You got the leather patch on the back that the belt goes underneath. It's just it's a well constructed pair of jeans, and you're gonna love the way they fit. You're gonna love the way they look, and they fit true to size. What I can't stand is when you get a pair of jeans that says 34 or 36, and they fit like a 32 or a 40. These jeans fit the way they're supposed to fit. They're well constructed. They're durable. You're going to love the way you look. And you're right. The bulge, the ass, the quads, everything. Everything fits. Everything works. They figured out the right recipe. And I look forward to wearing them for years to come.
And I had a little side Carl promo for Ridge Wallet. You see me, show me your Ridge Wallet. I'm gonna get you a beer. If you're in Doer jeans, show me your Doer jeans, and I'll throw a picture. We'll do a picture together on Instagram. I'll get your butt up on it. We'll show the world how good your butt cheeks look in Doer. That's just like a little thing you see me. I want to see you in Doer. We'll go for a nice hike. Discover the lightweight luxury of performance naturals. Whether you're a corporate climber or a mountain climber, take 15% off online at shopdoer.com or in store using code STARTING. Code STARTING, 15% off. These ain't no phony jabroni promos here, guys. Get some jeans for the fall. Doer jeans, doer.com. All right, bud. We've been doing a lot of baseball stuff together today. We've been on the mics for like hours now, doing the streams. Kind of as deep as we get into this stuff. Before we wrap, get into this last one. Obviously, shout out Colin. Grinding with us. Appreciate that, buddy. Let's get to some Braves Phillies because this could be the juiciest one to me. I mean, these teams evenly matched, completely different styles. And as Joe said, like, they're ready to go, dude. They're ready to pop. This is a team that the whole time is, like, ready to erupt. You've got adjustments. Ranger Suarez pitching as a one. What do you got,
Yeah,
bro?
well, you heard him talk about how he would take the top three from the Phillies and match them up against anybody. And, I kind of agree with him. That's a bold claim, but I like it. I like how we talked about, like, the heartbeat and the emotional state of Ranger Suarez, Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, even keel. Nothing phases them. They're ready for anything. And for the Phillies to win game one, before we get to game two, for them to win game one in a Ranger Suarez start, obviously Wheeler and Nola weren't ready to go for that game. It was close. The Braves tried to come back, but they won a start, made by Suarez. He only went 3 1/3. He gave up 1 earned run. He had 5 walks. Very lucky he didn't give up more than 1 earned. But what I loved about that is the Phillies came out. They scored quickly. They scored 2 in the first, 2 in the third, 2 in the fourth, 1 in the fifth. They didn't score from the 6th inning on, which it's always nice. Even though you have a lead like that, it's always nice to have some tack-on runs to give yourself some cushion, because as we saw, when Eflin came in the 9th, things got a little hairy. We saw that big swing. Obviously, guys getting on base in front of Olsen, but the huge 3-run home run made it a 1-run game. Ultimately, the Phillies ended up winning the game. On the road, against a really, really good team, and Max Fried was out there, who's battle tested, has a lot of experience in the postseason. But they got 6 runs off him, 4 earned in 3 1/3 innings. You got to give Phillies a lot of credit there.
Yeah, they deserve it. They definitely do. They deserve it. They've I was making these comments earlier about the Mariners, where it's like you're one of these teams where you kind of like battled your way in and out of it. The difference to me when I look at this Phillies team is like it's all very intentional that these players are there together. Like, obviously, Bryce Harper is the big name. Rhys Hoskins has been there 6 years. Stott they've built around. Alec Baum's the guy they've brought in. JT Realmuto is the guy that is to them is like the bedrock cornerstone of that franchise. There aren't a lot of these guys getting at bats. Maybe Brandon Marsh coming in center field playing a little bit is one of those guys you're like, well, I'm surprised he's here. But for the most part, those guys walk in that clubhouse, you look at each other, it's like, dude, we're the crew. Like, we're the dogs. We're the guys they picked out at the start of the year. We're the guys here at the end of the year. We found ourselves in this position where we're 1-1 with the Braves, defending World Series champs. Nobody talked about the Phillies this year nearly at the rate that they talked about the Braves and the Mets.
Well, you
and
mentioned,
so now if you're in the Phillies team,
yeah.
it's like, dude, we got house money. Rob Thompson's our guy. Let's go.
You mentioned Brandon Marsh, and he was, he was one of the dudes. I mean, obviously outside of Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, like he's one of the dudes over there, right? Like one of the fan favorites, one of their best players. And then he comes over to the Phillies, and now he's an opportunity, a guy that you can bring in late in the game for a pinch hit or whatever. And he plays great center field. He's a great athlete. He can run the bases. So that just bolsters their lineup. It makes it even deeper. And when you have a guy like Segura that you can bat 6th or 7th, and we talked to Joe about this, and I mentioned to him, he's one of the best guys with bat to ball skills. Like he puts the bat on the ball, he puts it in play, he doesn't strike out a lot. And Joe mentioned he doesn't have necessarily the highest OPS against right-handed pitching, which is why you might have him down in the order at 7. But man, like when you need a big at bat in a big situation, having a guy like Segura in the 7 hole it's a great luxury to have.
Dangerous 7-hitter. Very dangerous 7-hitter. And 7's one of those weird spots in the lineup where, like, yeah, you could still have a little thunder and carry over from, like, the 4, 5, 6 guys, but, at the same time, you're not, you have these, like, baked-in limitations. It's like, well, he's a 7-hitter. Like, of course his OPS against righties is a little down, but here's what we really like about him. I feel it just gives you an opportunity to look at the strengths of a player more, and that's really a guy like Gene Segura. And, again, he fits the same conversation with Castellanos. Castellanos is a guy they circled as a big free agent. We're like, we want this bat, we want this guy, we want him a part of this team. He had a great catch game 1, and I did, going back to the Joe conversation, I love the comments about how Castellanos would be one of the first guys to go talk to Alec Baum early in the season, where he's saying, like, I fucking hate this place. Like, dude, I know what it's like to play third and get beat up and, like, beat yourself up about being that guy. It's just what a great, like, you hear that story, you're like, oh, what a cool mix of different perspectives and how these guys got here. But the one thing I say, like, I think the Mariners, and I use them as an example, like, they backed into, like, all right, we need to go trade for some guys. Here's our payroll flexibility, et cetera. Like, I look at the Phillies, like, they have their homegrown guys. They have their homegrown guys that they've stayed with. They've got the guys that they've traded away prospects for because they want to make them part of the organization. You've got your big free agent guys. You've got the Zach Wheeler interdivision guy you went and signed and turned out to, like, be an absolute stud. You've got Aaron Nola, who you spent a top 10 draft pick on, who turned out to be a fucking stud. You've got Ranger Suarez, who you converted over from a bullpen into a starter now in his first full year. Like, now he's like, yo, just give me the ball any day. Like, that's a fucking sweet mix of boys.
And look, when you have Alec Baum hitting 6th, he hit 280, 288 or whatever during the regular season. Like, how many teams have a guy batting 6th hitting 288 or 280? Like, not many. So I think because the Phillies finished 3rd in the NL East, they didn't get as much love that they should have, because they had some miscues in the bullpen, and, like, maybe their starters at times weren't as good. The offense struggled here and there. But man, this is a really good team. You know, and they're showing us why they're a good team right now against the defending world champions in the Braves.
Nah, the Kyle Wright came out today, pitched well. Just a good reminder of the Braves.
Man.
Like this series is going to be a 5-game.
Supposed to.
Yeah.
You're not gonna. You weren't gonna sweep the Braves, and you might lose 2. Okay, but you still have an opportunity to win the series. Kyle Wright came out and did what you expected him to do. Gave up no runs. I think the Braves only gave up 3 hits all game. Let me confirm that. Yeah, Kyle Wright gave up 2, and Iglesias gave up 1 hit. Okay, Kyle Wright had 1 walk and 6 punch outs. He just neutralized the potent offense with the Phillies, and up until the 6th inning, it was a pitcher's duel. And then the Braves got 3 runs in the bottom of the 6th. Those were the only runs scored all game. So, that was a playoff type of baseball game. You get used to seeing pitchers duels in games like this, and this was no different. Kyle Wright, Zach Wheeler, dominant for the most part. Wheeler ran into a little bit of trouble in the bottom of the 6th. Braves made him pay for it, and that was it.
The 2 most uncontested playoff games so far this year. Well, I guess the Braves or the Mets Padres series wasn't really that close, even though it went 3 games. There weren't really a ton of moments in that series where this, that.
Yeah.
But so far through 60S games, like the Yankees 4-1 win over the
That
Guardians,
seems like the
1-1.
most uncontested.
Like that's the biggest blowout
Right.
we have, and that was like a nail-biting, extremely well-pitched game from both guys.
Well, and if that was like the Yankees Astros, we're not having that conversation. In a weird way, right? Like because you put 2 guys on base with the Astros, and say you have Yordan Alvarez at the plate, it's like, okay, yeah, it's 1 swing of the bat, it's 4-4. You just don't expect that. Not that it's not possible, but you just don't. It's just a weird conversation to have about the Guardians, and maybe we don't give them enough credit. But that's just kind of the story around the Guardians. They're not going to score. They're not necessarily going to score runs in bunches. They're going to pitch really well. They're going to timely hit, and they're going to get those timely hits from a supporting cast that a lot of people aren't even familiar with, which is great, and that's a testament to their development. And we saw the walk-off homer from the rookie off of Kluber in game 2 of the wild card series, which is crazy. So the Guardians, they're not out of it, but I do agree with you that was probably the most lopsided game of the postseason so far.
Like, it's not unrealistic to say, like, all right, the Guardians could be up in the series 2-1. You have Bieber pitching, then you've got Tristan McKenzie pitching at home. And then it's also not unrealistic to say if the Guardians took a 2-1 series lead that they, like, get killed, over the next 3 games. Like, this is just one of those series I don't know how close I'll feel throughout the duration of, like, all right, this is their moment. I just feel like it's just going to be very close, and then it'll go one way. But I still do. I stick by this at the top. I thought the Guardians had good value at 2-1 at the start of the series. I think they're going to play these games close and hard. But yeah, it's just going to be hard to win. 27 outs, man. I feel like it's just hard. It's hard to beat. Like, that was my big message when I wrote the blog about the Mariners Astros games. It's like, good luck beating the Astros, getting those 27 outs. Like, 25 outs, that's not the game. The 27 outs, and when you give guys extra outs, as we saw tonight in the Dodgers game, like, that shit adds up. Like, 28 outs is a huge difference. 29, 30, when you're not converting, balls and playing outs, it can lead to, then that 7-hopper through the hole is like the biggest single in the world.
Yeah, and game 2, Yankees Guardians, Bieber Cortez. I think that how much the Yankees faithful rallies around Cortez and how much they love him. I think he feeds off. He's going to get some extra juice. I don't think Cortez is a guy who's going to get that extra adrenaline, extra energy, and not be able to use it effectively. I think he's a guy that understands how to control his emotions. He can downregulate that adrenaline level and use it to his advantage. But I also think that Bieber is going to come out. You know, he's a veteran now. I think he's going to pitch. I think he's going to pitch well. But I see Cortez lasting longer in this game than Shane Bieber, and that's tough to say. But I think this is one of the few times in the postseason where the fuel from the fans really benefit Nestor Cortez, and I do think that the Astros win Game 2.
Now, can I ask you a question? This is my last question about the Astros, and just kind of wrapping up the show here. From my end, I'm happy to whatever. I'm at the point I'll go 25 hours.
Yeah, I'll get one more beer and we'll keep going.
I'm curious about like Framber Valdez as a sinker baller, and you as a sinker baller guy. Like, is there any concern that he hasn't pitched live game reps in like, you know, whatever it is, like 10 days? Because I always just get nervous about sinker ballers with a fresh arm, because then their velocity's a little bit higher and the ball comes out a little bit easier. And then because the ball comes out a little bit easier, I just feel like it's harder to like – sinkers are always just like a little bit sharper when your arm's a little like –
No.
You know, when you're kind of like a little beat, right?
Nope. The sinker's always better when you're free and easy and your arm feels like a whip. Like there's just nothing there. It's just along for the ride. The effort is all, it starts from the ground up. That's how you generate power. Use the ground for force, and it doesn't matter if you're throwing a curveball, a changeup, a sinker, a slider, a four-seamer, a screwball. No, it doesn't matter. You're generating the power from the ground up, and the arm is just what delivers the ball. That's the only thing. If you're activating your large muscles like these guys, if you're activating if you're activating those or the triceps or the lats too much, then that's going to cause you to lose probably velocity, command, and movement. If you're just letting this thing along for the ride, you're getting to your release point, you're good. So I think actually the better your arm feels, the better the sinker will be. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. So, and look, Framber has done this for long enough. He's pitched in huge games. He's not gonna use that added strength to try and overthrow. He's not gonna go out there and be somebody he's not. He's gonna throw that 93, 94 mile an hour sinker, bottom of the strike zone, quality delivery, very smooth. He's gonna be dialed in. He's gonna be ready to go.
I like him a lot. I like watching him pitch.
It's hard not to like him.
He's like 5'10". He's not a big guy. Well, like 240.
Oh,
240.
He's thick.
He's big.
Thick. Yeah, he's a thick boy.
But like if he was walking down the street, you'd just be like, oh, it's a thick man. You wouldn't be like, oh, there's 98. Then again, I keep coming back. I think I said this about Trey Turner on the stream. There's an appeal to the baseball players that are like as regular as it gets. And not to say Trey Turner's an outstanding world-class athlete, but like if Trey Turner, if you are at work, not you, if some of the guys, you're at work, you're at sales, you're me, you're selling insurance, you're working as a forensic accountant, whatever, like and your boss walks in like, hey, we got to introduce a new guy, Terry. He just moved from our San Diego office, and it was exactly Trey Turner in business casual. You'd believe it. You'd believe that guy worked for Salesforce and was part of your new team or some shit.
Until you watch him run, like, hey, I need you to sprint to get coffee. And you're like, oh, you know.
We got a softball team.
Yep,
You want
the
to
forensic accountant can't run like Trey Turner or slide like Trey Turner.
Ugh.
I mean, what a great
slides.
head of hair.
Yeah, crisp. Some rumors he might be back with the Orioles, but we'll get to that in the offseason. Right now we're in the postseason. Great day today, man. Great stuff. Great stream.
I loved every bit of it. I loved it. We did our interview this morning. We did our stream. The late game. It was a blast. It was good. We had people talking shit in the stream. Fuck those guys. You know what? Come see me in Austin. But Yeah, it's good shit. We're gonna go to a game live. We're gonna do some more of these streams, and we're just gonna talk baseball.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much for making this postseason better. This is awesome. I know just this stuff, it's just great. It's just getting this into the weeds about baseball talk is something that I've wanted on Barstool to be a part of the in-game shit very badly. So this is good stuff. Go follow our stream, subscribe to the show, share this Girardi interview with the Phillies fan. You got a Phillies fan in your life, send the Girardi interview your way. I guarantee you it'll make their day. So good luck at pickleball tomorrow, buddy.
I can't wait. I'm probably gonna get my ass kicked, but I'm gonna do my best.
All right, we'll be looking forward to updates, guys. Everybody go subscribe to the show. Everybody have a good one.
Good night.
I need a better sign off. Good night.